Name may be familiar to some of you, Jonathan Evans. For those Baylor Bears out there, you may know him. Played a little football down there. Former NFL college football fullback. He now has a fantastic ministry, especially to athletes. He's the chaplain for the Dallas Cowboys. Also has written a couple of books with his father, Dr. Tony Evans. So we're thrilled to have Jonathan here. He's completing his studies at Dallas Theological Seminary. Told me he's done in May, so I know he's excited about that. He and his wife have some children here in Grand Prairie, and we are just so excited that Jonathan is going to spend some time with us talking about what it means to be a kingdom man. So please welcome Jonathan Evans.
What's up, everybody? All right? Let's see, 9:26, less than 3 hours. Just sit tight. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. I was thinking the same thing when I was in high school, getting ready for a break. Hurry up, somebody do something, hurry up. You know, that's what I was thinking. Here, I know that I've got this purple phone. It's not mine. Don't judge me. It's my friend Austin's here. And I'm going to ask you to do me a favor because I want to make sure that I put you on Instagram by the end of the day. Stand back up because I need to take a selfie. Yeah, I'm going to start with this side first, if you don't mind. Hold on. Let me unlock the phone. Let's see. Middle. I got it wrong. Give you another break just for a second. Okay, let me start with this side. Y'all do something. I mean, throw your hands up in the air. Do something. I'm at Prestonwood. Boom. Yay! Hold on. Do it again. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that. I left my cell phone in the room, so Austin was gracious enough to let me use it. It's a big deal for me. I mean, we are at Prestonwood. My dad has spoken here. My sister has given a message here. My brother is sang here. My other sister has been here. And so I'm the last one as the baby of the family, so I just want to take a second just to take it in. All right, thank you. I needed that. I appreciate Doc coming up here and giving us the information that he gave us and giving us his story. My story is a little bit different. I'm not here to tell my story. I'm here to talk a little bit more about Jesus Christ, if you don't mind. But his story, they made it until they were married. I didn't make it until I was married. Some of you have already made that mistake. I guarantee you can recover from it and become the person that God wants you to be in your life. I'm so glad that I'm married to my wife now, and she was a virgin. I didn't make it, but she did make it, thank God. And, we really have a good time now in our marriage, and I've been able to overcome some of those things that mistakes that I've made, especially when I was in college, and that brain thing that he was talking about when you become to feel like it's normal and you can just keep going and nothing will hurt you, nothing will harm you, you can do what you do. And I realized all of those things, and now we have 3 kids, and God has blessed the decision that we made when we were dating. We were dating for 3 years, and I had made a very conscious decision about my relationship with Jesus Christ. She had made a conscious decision about her relationship with Jesus Christ. And in those 3 years, there was no sex going on between me and my wife. And so we honored God during those 3 years. And I can see how God is blessing in our marriage right now. We have 3 kids. I got Kelsey. She's 5 years old. She's got a big personality. I got Jonathan the second. I'm Jonathan. I'm Jonathan the first. He's Jonathan the second. We call him J2 just to sprinkle a little swag on it. And then I got my youngest son, Camden. K, it starts with a K, not C, Kamden. And he's 1 year old. And he's walking and doing well and chasing after his big sister and his big brother. And so it's amazing to see how I can be in that seat that you're sitting in, seeming like this long ago, and then all of a sudden I'm married and I got 3 kids that are totally dependent upon me. And now I truly understand what everybody's been saying, that the decisions that you make dictate the life that you lead. But it doesn't just dictate the life that you lead for yourself, it dictates the life that you lead for your future children. In other words, your future children are dependent upon the decisions that you make right now. Now that I have them, I realize that when I was sitting in your chair, I was just waiting for 12 o'clock so I can hurry up and go home. But now that I'm where I am, I realize that every decision that I made dictated how they were going to live, how they were going to learn the faith, how they were going to identify with Jesus Christ, who their mom and dad were going to be, and how we're going to pour into their life together as 2 parents, not just 1 parent, and give them the best environment that they can have. And so those things all come from a little bit of what he talked about, and that's just a tad bit of my story. But I really want to make sure that what I do say today connects with you, and I know that you're kind of sitting here anxious for your break. But I want you to pay attention just for a moment, actually a couple of moments, because Austin has a powerful message right after me. But I want you to pay attention. I don't want this message to get confused, because confusing messages can really hurt you. There was a story of a man and a woman who lived in New York City. And it was real cold in New York City, and they decided that they didn't want to live there anymore. So the husband said, you know what, I'm going to fly to Florida, and I'm going to find us a place in Florida. And when I find us that spot, I'll send you an email, talking to his wife, I'll send you an email, let you know that I've got everything ready for us in warmer climate. So he does. He jumps on a plane, and then he flies to Florida from New York. He gets there, he gets the house, he buys everything, he gets it all loaded up, and then he emails his wife to let her know that he's got everything set up. The problem was the email got mixed up and ended up going to a little old lady in Iowa whose husband had just died. The message got mixed up, and it ended up going to a little old lady in Iowa whose husband had just passed away. And so the little old lady is checking her email like she does every single day, and this time she reads this email, screams, and faints. Her granddaughter runs in to see what's going on. She knows that her grandpa has just passed away. The little old lady's husband has just passed away, so she's thinking that's the problem. So she's trying to wake her up, and then she looks on the email and realizes what happened. You see, because the first line said, hey, honey, I just want to let you know that I've arrived safely. The second line said, I can't wait for you to meet me down here tomorrow. P.S. It sure is hot down here, so I just want to make sure that you pay attention just for a few moments as I share a little bit of this message, because I don't want anybody to leave here confused at all. And I also want to make sure that you pay attention because the message that I'm about to give just for a few moments comes from the Word of God, which is even more important. You know, the Bible says in 1:19, the Word is a lamp unto your feet and a light unto your path. But the sad reality today, especially when I was a young person, and for some of you young people today, is that we're comfortable living a life in the dark. Because we live a life that ignores the Bible. We get into relationships and ignore biblical truth. We get into different things in our life, and we push Jesus to the side in order to serve our own purposes. And if the Bible is the light, but I'm ignoring the Bible when I'm living my life, that means I'm comfortable with walking in the dark. I don't know if you've ever experienced like me, you get up in the middle of the night and you feel like you've lived in your house long enough to make it to where you, from your bed to the bathroom, you just need to use the bathroom. You lived in your house long enough not to need the lights to get there. That is until you stump your pinky toe on the side of that dresser when on the way. Everybody ever had that happen to them? Don't act like you haven't had that happen to you. There's 2 thoughts that go through your mind. The first thought that went through my mind is simple. I didn't know my pinky toe was that valuable. That's number 1. And the second thing is why didn't I just go turn on the lights? You know why? Because it's inconvenient. For me to go over here when I really just need to go over there, it's an inconvenience to turn on the lights, but turning on the lights would have kept me from stumping my toe. And a lot of us will continue to move forward and stump our toe sexually, we'll stump our toe emotionally, we'll stump our toe mentally and physically because we refuse to simply turn on the lights. And that's what the Bible is. And God created each and every single one of you, not by mistake, but because He has a specific destiny for you, or you wouldn't be here. Anytime a manufacturer makes a product, he makes a product with a specific purpose, or the product wouldn't exist. But a lot of us will take years longer than the time allotted to get to our destiny because we simply ignore the manual along the way. I remember when I was a kid, on Christmas is coming up. I got my kids, they're just thinking about their toys. And I remember when I was a kid and I got my first bike when I was about 8 years old. And back then, you had to put everything together. You had to assemble everything. They didn't have bikes that were just rolling into the room. You had to put that thing together. And I was so excited. My dad was putting my bike together. And I was like, come on, Dad. I'm 8 years old. I can't stop moving. The ladies in the front here know my personality now. They're like, are you nervous? I'm like, no, that's just my personality. I can't stop moving. I'm just a fidgety dude. And I was real fidgety at 8 years old when I got my first bike. And my dad was putting it together. And if you know anything about Tony Evans, some of you may have heard that name before. If you know him, he had a 4.0 from the time he started college to the time he graduated with his doctorate. He's one of the greatest biblical scholars in our generation. I mean, the man's got a brain, and he figured since he is who he is, he doesn't really need to read the manual to put this bike together. Because, he's a scholar. He reads a book a week without fail. Thinking about that just makes my eyes water. I can't even read 2 pages without my eyes starting to water. Is anybody like that? But he reads a book a week. He's just that scholarly type dude. So he figured he could put my bike together, and I'm anxious. I'm 8 years old, and I'm doing all this, trying to hurry up. So he starts putting the bike together, and 4 hours go by, and he's just got the handlebars on. And I'm dying. And I said, Mom, get this cat. You got to do something. I didn't say it like that, but in my 8-year-old way. And my mom went in there, and she simply said this. She said, Tony, could it be that the bike maker probably knows more about bike fixing than you do? Now, for my dad, that's a condescending statement. He had to swallow his pride. She simply said, could it be that the bike maker probably knows a little bit more about bike putting together than you do? And so he swallowed his pride. He picked up the manual to the bike. And in 45 minutes, he had the whole bike put together when it took him on his own will and knowledge 4 hours just to get the handlebars on. My question today is simple. As we talk about relationships, you talk about your identity, you talk about who you are, what you want to do, what you want to accomplish. The question is simple. Could it be that the life maker probably knows a little bit more about life than you do? The sad reality is, as we sit here and we're just like, okay, it's not a big deal. I got it. I got it under control. I'm 15, 16, 17 now. I'm about to graduate. I'm about to be out on my own to make my own decisions and do all of those things. But you always want to remember that probably the person who created me knows a little bit more about me and the decisions that I should make than I do. And I want to give you this one verse today, and then I'll be out. Just this one verse. Same verse I'm going to share with the Cowboys on Sunday before they go up there and beat the New York Giants. Got any Cowboys fan in here? There's not any Giants fans in here, though, is there? Okay, perfect. I just wanted to make sure that I'm in the right place. The verse is this. It's simple. Acts 13:36. I want you to pay attention because this is not me talking, this is the Bible talking. David served the purposes of God for his generation, and then he was finished. David, he served the purposes of God for his generation, and then he was finished. It says he fell asleep. David, he served the purposes of God for his generation, and then he was finished. Right there, you have the summary of David's life. In one sentence, his life was summarized as someone who served God's purposes, and then he was finished. He wasn't focused on serving his own purposes. He was focused on serving God's purposes. Especially when you talk about having sex before marriage and doing things outside of God's will and God's way. It's simply us saying, I want to serve my own purposes based on the way that I feel, based on the way that I want to operate, even though you may have other purposes and other things in my life that you want me to accomplish. I want to serve my own purposes, but that wasn't David's summary. David served the purposes of God for his generation, and then he was finished. Y'all know the story about David. David killed Goliath. David was the king of Israel. David reigned for 40 years. He had all of these worldly accomplishments in his life, but when it comes to his life summary wasn't about his worldly accomplishments. His life summary wasn't about whether he just played in the NFL, whether he was good in fashion, whether he had all of these different things. His life summary was simply based on his relationship with God. I'm wondering, if you were to write your life summary right now in one sentence, would it have anything to do with your relationship with God? I could talk about sex, I could talk about STDs, I could talk about, Doc covered all of those things, but really, if we haven't identified with Christ as individuals, we'll still get caught up in those things even though we've heard all of the consequences that come with it. As you go on break, as you graduate, as you move forward, the question is, who do you identify with? David was in the culture, but he was not of the culture. His life summary was based on his relationship with God. The sad reality today is we have let the environment determine our identity instead of us determining our identity within the environment. If I'm in a relationship with a girl, I'm in a relationship with a guy, that's my environment, and how I'm feeling and serving my own purposes has decided how I'm going to operate within this environment, not my relationship with Jesus Christ. The last 3 years I had with my wife, we decided to identify with Jesus in the environment, not let the environment tell us what to do and what not to do. There was a story of there was an eagle who was sitting on its eggs. And it flew out of the nest just to go grab a bite to eat. Ended up kicking one of the eggs out of the nest. Egg fell, hit the ground, cracked open. Luckily, egg was ready to hatch. The egg fell in a turkey coop. Now, the little eaglet popped out. What do you think was the first thing that it saw? Come on, guys, talk back. Turkeys. So what do you think it thought it was? It's the first thing that it saw. So it started walking like a turkey. Talking like a turkey, gobbling like a turkey. It stayed grounded like a turkey. Because that's the environment that it was in. That's what it saw. That's all it knew. So it thought it was a turkey. But one day it looked up and saw a flock of eagles passing by, and it had an innate sense that it should be up there with them, but really it was just too comfortable where it was. But one of the eagles from up there saw the eaglet, who thought it was a turkey, and swooped down. And he said, "Eaglet, what do you think you're doing?" Little eaglet said, "What do you mean, what am I doing? Eagle, I'm a turkey." Eagle said, "No, you're not. You're an eagle. You're not a turkey. Let me show you. Flap your wings." Little eaglet started flapping his wings, went up and down, whee. Eagle said, no. Flap them harder. Eagle started flapping them harder, took off, did a little spin around the turkey coop, landed. Whoa. Eagle said, "Now follow me." Eagle took off, little eaglet took off right behind him, and then one of the turkeys in his life tried to hold him back. He said, "Hey, eaglet, where do you think you're going?" Eaglet got confident. "I'm just going to be what God created me to be, an eagle." Turkey. Some of us have been hanging out with turkeys a little bit too long, and I can tell, because we look like them, walk like them, talk like them. We get into relationships and do the things that they do just like them. We stay grounded even though we were created to soar. And I don't know if you realize it or not, but 2,000 years ago, an eagle saw you and came down and spread his wings on the cross. And he didn't spread his wings on the cross so that you can continue to identify with the turkeys in the turkey coop. He spread his wings on the cross so that you can identify with him within the turkey coop. Because this is not where you're from. The question is, what's your identity? And if you understand your identity as a man of God, as a woman of God, hopefully that's what it is. You understanding who you are in Christ. That what he did on the cross 2,000 years ago is not something that even in your young womanhood, in your young manhood, you blow off. Yeah, I've heard that, but I'll leave that to my parents. We'll let them go to church on Sunday. Yeah, I've heard that, but that was 2000 and over 14 years ago. That's cool back then, but it doesn't apply to me now. But if it does, it changes your decisions. If it does, it changes your life. If it does, you operate with that identity within every environment. David didn't let the environment determine his identity, or he wouldn't have this verse. David determined his identity within every environment. And that's the key for you. The question is, what are you taking in? Because if you really understand who you are, you only take in things that identify with who you're trying to be and where you're trying to go. My son is so funny, Jonathan II, J2, the swag name, so funny. One of his favorite foods is grilled cheese. Anybody like grilled cheese? Some of the best grilled cheese is at Sonic, by the way, just in case you get hungry after this. But one of his favorite foods is grilled cheese. And I looked back, and we were driving one day, and I looked back at him, and I said, J2. He said, yes, Daddy. I said, you want some grilled cheese when we get home? He said, what's wrong with this cat? This is his favorite food. J2, do you want some grilled cheese when we get home? He said, so I'm looking in the rearview mirror. I turn around. What's wrong with this dude? J2, grilled cheese. Do you want some grilled cheese? All right, last time, J2. Grilled cheese. Do you want some grilled cheese? He looked back at me and said, Dad, I don't want no girl cheese. I want boy cheese. Oh, I get it, son. I was like, that's what I'm talking about, son. Yeah, boy cheese. I'm going to get when we get home. And then as I was laughing as a parent, you have those moments where you're laughing at your kids making statements like that, and I'm laughing at them, and then it dawned on me that my son wasn't willing to put anything in his mouth that didn't connect with who he was. The problem is with a lot of us as young people is we continue to take in things that don't have anything to do with our identity in Christ. So we've got these phones. I don't have mine on me. I wish I could pull it out because I've got the 6 Plus now, so it's a big screen. We got these phones, and people don't know it, but we're surfing pornography. Kim Kardashian's got her butt out. You've seen it. Don't act like you haven't seen it. And we're looking and taking in all of these different things that have nothing to do with the fact that the eagle came and spread his wings on the cross so that we don't have to identify with those things. And wondering why, even though we're saved, we're so distant from our relationship with Christ because of what we're taking in. So you have those that take in things that don't have anything to do with their identity. And then you have another group. I call them the changers or shapeshifters. Because they don't really realize who they are, they let the environment control who they are in the moment. Now, I don't know if you like this movie series, but I'm a movie guy. One of my favorite movie series is X-Men. If you don't like it, something's wrong with you. X-Men, that's one of my favorite movie series. I like all of them. I like Iceman, I like Magneto, I like the Professor, I like the Wolverine, I like all of those cats because they got real good strategic powers. But one of my favorite characters based on the power that she has, is Mystique. She has the ability to shapeshift. She can become anybody depending on the environment that she's in or what she wants to accomplish. You think you're shaking the hands of the President of the United States, and then 3 seconds later you have a blue foot in your throat. I love it. And even though that's my favorite character for a movie, it's not my favorite character when I see people do that in life. Professional shapeshifters. Because they don't know who they are and they haven't identified with Jesus Christ. They're one way with their friends. They're one way on the football team. They're another way at church. They're another way over here. They're one way with their parents. People don't know who they are. It's because they don't know who they are. They haven't identified with Jesus Christ. And then you have another group. those that are pseudo-ashamed of Jesus Christ. Really? I'm not going to bring that up. You know the doc that was just up here, he wasn't ashamed because a woman tried to seduce him, and he said, do you know Jesus? That would mess up everything. I wish I would have had that line in college. That would have messed up everything. He wasn't ashamed. Some of us push back. That's cool. That's the church stuff. We'll do that at Prestonwood. We got that on Sunday. I don't need that Monday through Saturday. Push back. Yeah, I know. I've seen the Passion of the Christ. I've been through all that. I've heard all the statistics. That's not changing anything. Push back. I am who I am. I have the I'ma do me attitude. We can get to that church stuff when I grow up. I'll leave that to my parents. Push back. There was a girl one day who was ashamed of her mother. Everywhere they went in public, the little girl wasn't having it. Push back. They were shopping in the store. She'd walk on the other side of the store. Young girl, because she was ashamed of her mother. Her mother would come pick her up from school. She'd tell her mother to stay in the car. And her mom realized it. And she sat down with her one day at home and said, "Why are you so ashamed of me? What have I done that has made you so ashamed?" The little girl said, Mom, it's not what you've done. It's how you look. You see, the mother had a huge gash, scar, on the right side of her face. And the little girl was ashamed of her mother because of the scar. So in public, I'm not with that Scarface stuff. And then her mother said, "Let me tell you how I got this scar. When you were a little girl, the house caught on fire. You were upstairs in your crib, an infant. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to get up there on time to save you. But I did anyway, because you're my little girl. I got up there, I grabbed you out of the crib. It's blazing, it's hot, my skin is burning. I can barely see because of the smoke. And I'm rushing down the stairs with my little girl in her hands. And as I'm leaving the house, one of the beams from the door came down and struck me across the face. And I was just able to toss you on the grass as I was struck. You see, little girl, the reason why I have this scar is because I was trying to save your life. The reason why you live is because of the scar. So many young people today, not with that Jesus stuff. In my relationships, we'll do Jesus later when I get married. And they're ashamed. But do you really realize the nature of his scars? That if it wasn't for his scars, you wouldn't even be here. You'd have no chance. So you got those that take stuff in, you got those that push back. But the question about all of this stuff that we're talking about, homosexuality yesterday, a sexual promiscuity, and all of the things that we're talking about today really boil down to, do I love Jesus? Am I going to stand in my identity with Christ, or am I just going to push back? Am I going to let the environment determine who I am, or am I going to determine who I am within every environment? David served the purposes of God. Yeah, he was a king. He was popular. That's cool. We like watching popular people on TV. Question is, are they going to have a life summary like David? Are you going to have a life summary like David? Or are you just going to push back? I'd rather be identified with notoriety. I'd rather be identified with fame. Some of the men, I'd rather be identified by how many women I can get. I played in the NFL. I know what it is. With literally men who have lockers right next to me who boast about the fact that they've been with over 150 women. And that's the life. But they don't have no summary, though. What's their one sentence going to say? You going to be remembered because you had sex with over 150 women? You going to be remembered because you had a lot of money? You think your manhood is based on the fact that you play in the NFL? You think that's what's going to, you think people are going to remember that? Nah, they're not going to remember that. Matter of fact, most famous person in the world other than Jesus Christ was Michael Jackson. If you don't like Michael Jackson, something's wrong with you. Michael Jackson was the greatest. I don't even, how long was it since he's passed away? Like 7 or 8 years or something like that? Time goes fast. I'm a Michael Jackson fan. I mean, I was the kid my mother used to be embarrassed to pick up because I'd have on the slacks that were flooding with the white socks and the penny loafers. And I'd be out there throwing my hat and slinging it around and kicking my leg and hee, the whole thing. And as great as he was, you know how great Michael Jackson was? 13 people committed suicide when Michael Jackson died. Did you know that? 13 people committed suicide because they worshiped Michael Jackson. That's how famous he was. And to be honest with you, if it's been 8 years since he died, I really hadn't thought about him in 8 years. Neither of you. He doesn't cross your mind until they start playing his music on, his anniversary. You mean we forgot that quick? You mean even if you're as great as Michael Jackson, people just move on? So whose purposes are you serving? Because at the moment Michael Jackson was no longer here, all that mattered to him is what he forwarded ahead. Because nobody that left behind remembered anything. So if you spend all your time serving your own purposes, it'll be forgotten. But if you spend your time identifying with Jesus Christ and serving his purposes, you'll be remembered. That's David's summary. David served the purposes of God. Not his own. His. His. Any of you got poodles? Poodles, dog. What's your... Good. I don't see any fellas, just a couple of ladies. That's what I'm talking about. Good. None of my fellas, you shouldn't have poodles unless your sister chose the dog. Rottweilers and pits, that's all you're allowed to have. I had a poodle growing up. It was my sister's dog. I was young. Get off my back. And he was a little afflicted because I'd always come home from school to watch this poodle chase his own tail. The reason why some of you aren't laughing is because you come home every now and then and you watch your dog chase his own tail. And I'm thinking to myself, Solomon, name was Solomon. Do you not realize, O Solomon, that your mouth is on your face and your tail is on your butt? You were not created to chase your own tail. You can try as hard as you want. That is something that you will not be able to satisfy because you just weren't created that way. Sorry, dog. And he'd run around in circles. And he'd start running faster because he thought he was just too slow. Never able to satisfy the intent of chasing his own tail. Except there was one day that I saw Solomon catch his tail. You ever seen your dog catch his tail? I saw him catch his tail. But you know what? He had to let go of it pretty quickly because it was too uncomfortable for him to stay in that position because he wasn't created for it. serving your own purposes is no different than being a dog chasing his tail. Because you're trying to satisfy something that cannot be satisfied. And you find yourself just running around in circles. Guys, girl after girl after girl after girl, trying to satisfy my own purposes, trying to satisfy my own flesh, and I find myself just and for a moment, I feel like I'm satisfying myself. But because I wasn't created for that position, I got to start running again. David served the purposes of God. He identified with Jesus Christ. And my hope is that no matter what environment you're in, you will be willing to identify with him too. What will be your summary as a man and as a woman of God? Thanks for having me. I'm Jonathan Evans.